Hello and good evening, everybody, and welcome back to more cognitive behaviour therapy. I've got my book, I've got my emotional support dog with me. So let's begin, shall we? Chapter 6. Now, this is a long one because it's about 40 pages long. So, I'm going to keep it in one video because I don't think it's a good thing to, because I did say I was going to do one chapter of video. So, if it's quite long, probably best to watch in bits. So let's jump in, shall we? 6. How to change your mood. Changing our thoughts can improve our mood. The best way to do this is to start to challenge our negative thoughts and thinking errors. Let's see this in action. Okay, you have chapters, as you can see. Activating event. My train is running late for me to get to work. Beliefs. People will think I'm unreliable for being late and not able to cope. I'll also get into trouble with the boss. Now you have 2 points of divergence here. As you can see, you've got one that takes you straight down to here, and you have this long one here. I'm going to do the quick one first and then go for the longer one. So the quick one, emotional consequence, anxiety and anger. Yeah, sounds about right. Let's do that. Nah, it makes me look. Don't get that there. Right. Challenging negative thoughts. Alternative rational thoughts. So this is the good route. What I like to think of as the canon event. With any luck. Fingers crossed. Right. I am jumping to conclusions, predicting the future and mind reading. There is no evidence to say that people will think that way. It's understandable to be flustered when you're running late. My colleagues will understand. In fact, I'm often on time and reliable. They may be late too. Some of them also get this train. My boss would understand it's not my fault, and if he is annoyed, I can talk to him and explain maybe I could offer to work a bit later. Now that sounds a bit like bootlicking, my friend. But this book is not about that. So let's carry on. New alternative consequence. Slightly uneasy and frustrated, calm more or less, feeling more able to cope. Challenging negative thoughts. The best way to challenge our negative thoughts and thinking errors is by asking ourselves further questions about them. Here is a list of questions that will help you to start to generate new, more rational and alternative thoughts. Questions to generate alternative thoughts. Someone I loved had this thought. What would I tell them? Would I be thinking about this differently if I was feeling more positive? Am I considering all relevant information when forming my view of this situation? Am I ignoring any strengths or positives about myself in this situation? Now let's go through them again, shall we? If someone I loved had this thought, what would I tell them? Oh, now this is something I ask myself all the time. What would I tell someone else going through this? Someone else, I'll say, don't worry about it. It'll all work out. Your boss will understand and your colleagues will be fine too. Would I be thinking about Zoom if I was feeling more positive? Most likely, yes. Am I considering all relevant information when forming my view of this situation? Well, obviously, no. Am I knowing any strengths or positives about myself on the situation? Or the situation? Well, obviously, yes, I am. Am I engaging in any thinking errors at the moment? My negative thought is still true. What is the worst that could happen? You might want to look back to my previous video where I spoke about the demon under my bed, ready to bite at my feet. There is no room for a demon under my bed, of course, because it's filled with crap and boxes and dust. But I still think about it being there. If my negative thought is still true, what is the worst that could happen? Well, if we're going by the demon under my bed right now, it could come out and bite my feet off and slowly eat me from there. That is the worst case scenario. Actually, that thought's running through my head again. Let's do the exercises. Hello, intrusive thought. F off, intrusive thought. Hello. F off. Okay, let's go again. If someone I trust were to look at this, what would they understand? Would they understand? Well, yes, they probably would. They'd probably look at it a lot more positive than I would. Whether we're talking about the demon under the bed or the running late train. And yes, I am realising I said that in the wrong order, but I don't care. Exercise 6.1. Structuring your negative thoughts. Try using the questions opposite to challenge your own negative thoughts about one of your own stressful events. Use the worksheet over the page to help you do this. Notice the changes in how you feel emotionally as a consequence of your new alternative, more rational thoughts. Use the same example you used in exercise 5.1 if that's helpful. You may want to do this exercise regularly, or every time you come across a situation you know stimulates negative thoughts. I'd have time for nothing else if I'd done that. I think the authors of this book underestimate how many negative thoughts I actually have. Then again, they might not. Right, activate an event. Let's go with the previous one, shall we? For example, missing the doctor's appointment. Doesn't have to be for a blood check, could be for anything. Beliefs, negative thoughts. I'm an idiot. I always do this. Why do I always do this? I'm an idiot. No one else does this. So let's go with the bad ending, shall we? Emotional consequence. I hate myself. I have imaginary arguments with a deity I'm not convinced exists and a former partner of mine. And I go home feeling more sad and hateful than ever before. Now let's challenge those negative thoughts, shall we? Let's do the good ending. The challenging negative thoughts, or I should say to myself, is Jim or James. I call myself both actually. Doesn't really matter. I say James. It's a simple mistake. 8:20, 8:30, Thursday, Friday. It could easily happen. You're not the first to do it, and you won't be the last. I mean, just before I went in, there was this incident with the door. Of course, they have two doors, I should explain. My doctor's office, my surgery. Actually, it's doctor's surgery, they call it, isn't it? And I went through the first door, and the second door said push button to enter. But there was no button. I couldn't see, and eventually I saw one, but that does the one behind me. But like an idiot, I pressed it anyway. I pressed it several times, like, check, press. And you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. So I pushed the door, nothing. Pulled it, opened. And this other bloke there said to me, I done the same thing too, mate. And I smiled and said, thanks for that. Glad I'm not the only one. And then the other incident happened. So, back to challenging negative thoughts. It's an easy mistake to make. Anyone could have done it. You're not the first to do it. You're not the last. Doesn't make you an idiot. Mistakes make you human. All humans make mistakes, no matter how together they seem to have it. No alternative emotional consequence. I go to the local one-stop to look for bargains. Sometimes I find something, sometimes I don't. Then I go home in a decent mood. Not worried about missing the appointment because that's life, it happens. Everyone does it. Keeping my mood in check. It is really helpful to keep a thought and mood diary to ensure that you stay on top of the way you would like to feel emotionally. This gives you a great opportunity to check in with how you are feeling on a daily basis and improves your skills at challenging your negative thoughts. Exercise 6.2. Thought and mood diary. Take a look at the example diary over the page and try filling it in at least once a day over the next week to record and attempt to change any unpleasant emotions that you may be feeling. So let's have a look, shall we? I will show you. Example diary. Damn it, I presume you can read that. Hopefully you can. I'm going to leave it here for a few seconds so you can pause it. Right, back to reading. The diary asks you to do the following. 1. Note the situation that triggered the unpleasant emotion. This emotion occurred while you were thinking or daydreaming. Simply note that too. 2. Note the automatic negative thoughts associated with the emotion. 3. Record any identified thinking errors and challenge automatic thoughts. You can refer back to the list of common thinking errors on page 49 to 51 to assist you. You might also want to refer back to the list of suggested questions to help generate alternative thoughts on page 65 to 66. Devise more adaptive thoughts to help you change your mood. 5. Rate the intensity of your emotions 0, the lowest, to 100, the highest, and your belief in your thoughts 0% to 100%. Before and after you have challenged your negative thoughts. So let's start changing our mood. Sample dice. Situation. Who were you with? Alone. What were you doing? Watching telly on the TV. Sorry, watching telly on the sofa, I should say. Not on the TV. When was it? Saturday night. Where were you? At home. Yeah, sounds about right for me. Feelings. Sad. Describe each mood. Sad and low. Rate intensity 85. This is an example, by the way, I should point out. Negative thoughts. I am so alone. No friends have called me. There must be something wrong with me. Rate belief in thoughts 90%. And it wants me to do one of these a week, I think. Right, there's more. Thought changing. Are there any unhelpful thinking styles or errors in my negative thoughts? Example, ruminating, all or nothing. Personalization, overgeneralization. Which technique have I used to help generate alternatives? Am I considering all relevant information? Very true. Adaptive response. My alternative thoughts to negative thoughts. I may feel lonely right now, but I'm not alone. Sarah did ask me out to a seminar we could go next week, and to that new salsa bar. This is so the example, by the way. I don't know anyone called Sarah, and no one has asked me out to that new salsa bar. Random belief in alternative response 95%. That's nice. Outcome. Based on the adaptive response, re-rate belief in negative thoughts. I am so alone. No friends have called me. There must be something wrong with me. Down to 10%. Describe and re-rate subsequent emotions 0 to 100%. Low 25%. Calm 80%. Excited 80%. That's nice. So let's have a look.
2 hours later.
Actually, no. Okay. People, I'm going to go with the example because this is something I've experienced in the past. Because I've always had a hard time making friends. So, who were you with? No one. I was by myself. What were you doing? I was by myself watching TV or playing a video game or something. Sometimes I read a book. Where were you? At home. Feelings. Describe each mood. Sad, depressed, lonely. Convinced that none of my friends like me. Rate the intensity. I'm not going to say 100 because that's just easy. I'm going to call it 90. Negative thoughts. I would think things like, well, bear in mind I've lost contact with my friends, so it could have been right, but probably not. Life, does things. But my thoughts at the time were, when I was on my own, my friends don't like me. Not really, I mean, they put up with me, but they don't like me. Maybe they just use me for, my car, and the fact that at the time I was teetotal, so I was always a designated driver. And I would give lifts to people, sometimes people I didn't know. I was like that. Well, back in, I still am. Always was a people pleaser. Rate belief in thoughts. Call it 90% again. Thought changing. Are there any unhelpful thinking styles or errors in my negative thoughts? Well, yes, it's what I all do. I automatically think the worst of things. Which change if I use to help generate alternatives? I haven't done that yet. At the moment, I'm still on the negatives. But let's do that now, shall we? Did they really dislike me? Well, no, they didn't. I mean, because if you don't like someone, you don't hang out with them. You don't just get someone you don't like and use them for a lift. I mean, that's just silly. At the end of the day, they did often ask me out. And when I texted them saying you're up to much, they'd often say, yeah, come along. We'd do something. So they didn't really dislike me. I just convinced myself they did. Right. Well, alternative thoughts to negative thoughts. Okay. So no one likes me will become, yes, they do like me. I am being used because I'm just a teetotal person with a driving license is wrong because they don't need a teacher or driver. There's buses and taxis. And considering this was back when my friends lived in Brighton, it wasn't that much of a journey, so you wouldn't be spending a whole lot, maybe a drink or two. And as I said earlier, they really didn't like me, they just not have seen me at all. Rate a belief in alternative response. Well, it's hard to be positive, but I'm going to be honest, 80% we call that. Based on the adaptive response, we rate belief in negative thoughts. So I've gone from 90% in belief in my negative thoughts to 20%. I mean, it's easy to say 0%, but that'd be a lie, and we all know it. And it wants other examples. And you're supposed to do one a day. I'm going to do these in my spare time, or away from the camera anyway. So I'm going to skip these and go to the end. We're going to act like we've done them all. I expect you to be doing this as well if you're watching this. Alright. Yep, that's it. Distracting negative thoughts. Sometimes challenging our negative thoughts can be difficult. Damn right there, I know that. Particularly when the same intrusive thoughts keep popping into our minds. We may find that we are getting caught up in a never-ending loop of alternating thoughts. When this happens, it is time to stop trying, as we will just be getting ourselves more stressed and losing more self-confidence. Instead, we can use a different technique. Distraction. Distracting ourselves from our negative thoughts has two benefits. One, an often immediate improvement in how we feel. Two, an improved level of self-confidence. Both sound great. When we spend time engaged in negative thoughts, it doesn't feel good, sure. We are making ourselves feel even more distressed. But let's face it, it's not difficult. It really isn't. It doesn't require much effort. What is difficult is trying to distract yourself from these thoughts and focus on them less. You may find that it feels wrong to challenge or distract yourself from certain negative thoughts because you feel and believe that they are true. However, the goal here is not to determine if negative thought is true or not, but more how helpful or unhelpful it is to the way you feel. When trying to distract yourself from negative thoughts, it is important to remember what you are trying to achieve. Distraction from the thoughts in your thinking self. Therefore, it is no good getting up from the couch and doing some mundane task, like washing the dishes. If you want to distract your mental activity, it's important that you engage in mentally stimulating exercises. Reading a book, listening to some music or the radio, or talking to someone about something other than what is on your mind are really effective ways to distract yourself. Should these techniques not be working for you, you could try playing some mental games such as those on the next page. Let's have a look, shall we? 1. Counting all even numbers back from 100. Okay. Starting your times tables or the alphabet. Okay. Actually, let's do that, shall we? We're not going to do it all. Even numbers backwards from 100s. 100, 98, 96, 94, 92, 90, 88, 86, 84, 82, 80, 78, 76, 74, 72, 70. I'm going to leave it there because you don't want it to be counting backwards. Reciting your times tables or the alphabet. Okay, let's do the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Okay, notice how many people on the street are wearing blue clothing. It's late at night, so that ain't gonna happen. But let's think of an imaginary street. And there are 1, 2, and 3. 3 people. Guessing what the people around you might do for a living. Okay, let's have a think. This is an imaginary street. That person's a merchant banker. No pun intended. That person makes plushies. That person's a vlogger with more subscribers than me. And the person that's almost bumped into me is unemployed. Okay. Remembering all your past school friends whose surnames end with the letter S. I used to know a friend called Sinclair. This was after school though. I don't think I had any others that's ended with an S-N. I don't think I did. Anyway, these we're at the end now. These are just some ideas, but we might be able to come up with some more. Key things to distract your thoughts. This is actually really genius. Simple. I wish I thought of this myself. Shrinking the problem. It can be easier to distract ourselves when we know that we will have some time to think about our problems later. Knowing that you have some time to let all your negative thoughts run wild can increase the chances that you are able to distract yourself in the present moment. Therefore, you might like to set some time aside in a day, say 30 to 45 minutes, when you allocate time for negative thoughts to run through your mind. It is important to stick to firm time boundaries when doing the exercise and try to distract yourself once again when your allotted time comes to an end. This may sound like a strange thing to do. It really does. But it can really help you to gain some control over your thinking and stop your negative thoughts interfering with your whole day. Summary of CBT skills. In this part of the book, you have understood that cognitions are our thoughts. You have identified what thinking errors you may be making and the negative impact these errors may be having on the way you feel emotionally, physically, and the way you behave. To improve your mood, you have practiced challenging and restructuring your negative thoughts as well as different distraction techniques. Part 3. The B in CBT. So far, we have been focusing on how our thinking patterns can be changed in order to affect our mood. While this is a very effective approach in its own right, when you combine this with changing your behaviour, you can increase your chances of sustaining these positive changes in your mood. So in this part of the book, we are going to take a closer look at the other core component in psychology that CBT is based upon, our behaviour. And the last page has a little diagram. You can see why, because I'm trying to make sure you can actually see it. Behaviour refers to everything we do with our body and all the actions we take. It is impossible to do nothing, as nothing is still something. At every moment we can identify the behaviour we are engaging in, which of course forms a part of the thought, feeling, behaviour cycle we discussed in chapter 1, page 19. Thought becomes feeling, feeling becomes behaviour, behaviour becomes thought, which becomes feeling, and so on. And that, people, gives us to the end of chapter 6. I hope you learned something tonight, because I think I did. I think I feel really good right now. So, until next time, I'm James and you've been listening to me read a book. Until next time, bye.